Hello, welcome to the Brimfield Historical Commission's presentation on the Town Hall's history. My name is Sue DeBruin, and I'm the chairperson of the Historical Commission. I'd first like to recognize this dynamic group that you see on the screen. Lee Adams, Adrienne Bachand, Roseanne Bergdahl, Mark Connors, Bob Corey, and Mike DeFalco. These board members work really tirelessly on various projects and activities that all support Brimfield's history. So this slide highlights some of the projects that we have spearheaded, from placing the gazebo on the town common and asking for and being granted the opportunity to change the design on the Cumberland Farm store in Brimfield, just to give it a more historical aesthetic that fits opposite our historic town common. From projects like that all the way to the current rehabilitation of the Civil War Memorial and the acquisition of the historic windmill from the Diocese of Springfield. So at the bottom of the upcoming column, you see the Town Hall project. So Brimfield's Town Hall is not a project of the Historical Commission per se, but we do support its necessary renovation and restoration. And if approved, the current Town Hall project will bring all town offices and civic functions back within its walls to operate as it was originally intended. And for that, the Historical Commission is supportive. Many of the historic features of the Town Hall will also be preserved, from the floors to its overall architecture. And once again, the Historical Commission is in support of this. Brimfield's Town Hall, and here you see it shortly after 1930. Town Hall has been an anchor within our community since 1878. And once a proud symbol of civic pride, the building is now completely empty, devoid of any and all town operations. So the community needs to know this building is now closed and locked to the public, and I think most people do. Plexiglass now covers windows, some of which are broken. No offices are active. No meetings are able to be held here. No votes take place here anymore. The heat is definitely turned off in the winter. Yet historical assets remain. The original records dating back to the town's incorporation in 1731 remain in non-climate controlled circumstances. The George Washington painting hangs proud, as well as the Civil War Soldiers Memorial plaques that also hang beside it. No one can see or interact with anybody or anything in this hall anymore. And it now stands on the precipice of change. This town hall is at a crossroads, and a route for the town hall needs to be chosen by the voters. So which path will be chosen, essentially? It currently teeters between a town vote to preserve it and bring town government back within its walls, or to leave an abandoned building in the historic town center. And I love this picture of a vote being counted. As this picture was being captured, it's just amazing. And I'd love to see this happen again with our clickers. The importance of the town hall's future is even more clear when you look at its past. So I included this slide with the arrow pointing to the rear of the building. We're going to take a look at what's behind the town hall, the history that we can't see, and comes from pictures and newspaper articles and recollections that I'll present going forward. Town hall's past began with the settlement of Brimfield. So this is a drawing of 1850s Brimfield, before the town hall existed. So the question is, where did townspeople meet? Where did civic operations take place in the early days of the town? During the first decades of town settlements in New England, religious meetings and town meetings were often held in the same building called the Meeting House. This is the Linfield Meeting House, 1714, the third oldest in New England, still standing. Constructing Brimfield's first meeting house began in 1722, well before the town's incorporation in 1731. The first settlers framed the building 45 feet long and 40 feet broad, but the frame was left for a year exposed to the weather. It took the busy settlers 9 years to complete the meeting house. In 1731, they were still laying the floors and building pews at the town's cost. Brimfield's first meeting house was a plain barn-like building with no chimneys, no tower, and no steeple. Religious and civic life were closely connected, with the church playing a central role in public affairs. On Sundays, the meeting house was used for religious services. On weekends, the same building was used for town meetings, legal proceedings, and other community gatherings. Only male church members in good standing were allowed to vote or hold public office, blending both political and religious authority. By the late 1700s, the future of the meeting house was uncertain, and its demolition was often discussed. In 1792, there was an article on the warrant which read as follows: "To see if the town will enter into a free conversation relative to building a new meeting house." No result was reached. 5 years later, in 1797, there was still no decision about constructing a new meeting house. And by report, the meeting house must have had a tottering frame, for the treasurer's account on March 11, 1799, indicated money was allocated for sweeping, repairing, and propping up the meeting house. On April 2, 1804, the town voted to demolish the building and build a new meeting house. Elias Carter of Brimfield was contracted to design and oversee construction. Money was appropriated and pews were pre-sold to support the project. So if you do the math, it took the townspeople of Brimfield like 12 years to make a decision about building a new meeting house, even though in 1799 they were propping it up. And I think this goes to highlight that the citizens of Brimfield have always been very careful with big decisions like this. So the building of the new meeting house was a town affair, and people reportedly came from far and near to help. Each district furnished a specific number of timbers, and men from out of town were hired. Meals for the day were provided by the town, which I found very unique. Liquor was also provided, rum, brandy, and wine, at the town's expense of $121.22. So $121 in 1804 would be the equivalent of $3,279.29 in 2025. And I absolutely cannot imagine the town supplying alcohol for a town event. But back then, no problem. One whole side was raised at a time, the west side first, Mr. Carter going up with it, standing on the gallery girth. Only one man, Ezra Hitchcock, fell or was injured in a way. He petitioned the town for compensation, but the common opinion seems to have been that if he had not been somewhat elevated, as more sober people usually are, he would not have fallen. This is from Hyde's History, 1879. Between 1818 and 1820, the town procured from Jesse Hitchcock the right, under certain conditions, to build a conference hall on the northwest corner of his village lot, which is where the town hall stands today. A 2-story building was erected with a hall above and 2 rooms below, with an entrance hall in between, which not only served for the social meetings of the church, but it was used, the lower part, by Benjamin Salisbury and others for a tailor shop, for private schooling, and for a military storeroom of an independent rifle company. When Jesse Hitchcock died, this arrangement fell between himself and the town fell through. His son Alfred sold the building, and the building was moved to Fiskdale. Hyde's History. The conference hall was moved to Fiskdale with 13 teams of oxen, where it eventually became the Oxbow Bar. In 1974, it was once again moved, likely for the valuable liquor license it carried. It was taken to the Sheridan Inn, which is currently the Sturbridge Host Hotel, where it was later known as the Oxhead Tavern. In 1833, Massachusetts formally separated church from state. A constitutional amendment was passed, which ensured that no religious institution would receive financial support from the state. Massachusetts, interestingly, was the last U.S. state to disestablish an official state church. The town of Brimfield's civic functions continued to operate out of the meeting house, which was essentially the church. As many Massachusetts towns grew during the mid-1800s, separate buildings dedicated to civic functions began to appear, called townhouses. Not in Brimfield. In 1869, the basement floor of the meeting house was dug down 12 feet to create a fellowship hall. This hall, beneath the church sanctuary, housed the town of Brimfield's government operations. Currently used as the senior center in 2025. Meanwhile, the late industrial period was happening. This is 1870 to 1915. I always like to know what's going on at certain points of time while other historical events, local events, were taking place. This period in Massachusetts history was a transitional time where traditional farming was on the decline and there was a rapid transformation in New England as a whole. We have advances in industrialization, and many left rural areas like Brimfield to work in cities or mills. And during these societal changes, the population in Brimfield witnessed a decline. In 1850, there were 1,418 residents. In 1870, we were down to 1,288 residents. And by the turn of the century, the population in Brimfield decreased to 941. Here is a view of Brimfield in 1875. If you look toward the middle of the screen, there is no windmill. You do see the Soldiers Monument near Hitchcock Academy, which looks similar to how it looks today. And next to that, you see what would have been the second Brimfield Hotel. You see the church with its steeple, standing tall, but there is no town hall across from it. Some changes and technical advances during this period were welcome in Brimfield, while others definitely were not. The windmill was erected on the land of the Wiles house, which pumped water from the nearby brook to the attic of the house, giving that household what might have been the first home in the town with running water. Telegraph lines also appeared in town, strung on poles that ran the length of the common, and they were strongly criticized by the residents of Brimfield. And one more change was about to be proposed, and the community was divided. At the annual town meeting in 1878, Article 12 was presented, and it read as follows: to see if the town will build a town house and pass all necessary votes to carry the same into effect. Vote passed 95 to 91. A town hall was to be built in Brimfield. The building committee of 1878 was responsible for procuring a site and overseeing construction. And their building committee was Alfred Converse, William Shaw, Thomas Morgan, Porter Parker, Plenty Spaulding, Dwight Allen, and town treasurer James Brown. $5,000 was appropriated for the project, which would be the equivalent of $159,000, $889.50. $2,000 of that came from the town treasury, which was the equivalent of what would be $64,000 today. $500 was raised through taxation, $16,000 today, and the remaining amount was borrowed by the treasurer. In the 1870s in Massachusetts, towns spent varying amounts on town hall construction. Topsfield, Massachusetts approved $13,000 for a town hall in 1873, and their town's population was 1,213 in 1870. Pepperell, their town hall project cost $27,100, exceeding their $18,000 original limit. and their population was only about 2,000 in 1874. And here you have Brimfield. They appropriated $5,000 with a population similar to those other towns in 1870. Again, a community that is cautious and very careful about spending. T.M. Hitchcock was paid $300 and Ira P. Thompson was paid $125 for the land needed, which is around the area of the white arrow that you see. You see the Hitchcock property across from the Congregational Church. And J.P. Cheney was hired as the contractor. His payments were in the amount of $3,250. Prominent Springfield architect Eugene Clarence Gardner was hired to design the new town hall building. So this building, this town hall or townhouse that was to be built, was definitely not a barn-raising situation as with the first meeting house. The citizens took the step to hire a well-known architect to design it, which makes our town hall in Brimfield pretty rare. For Brimfield, Gardner planned an imposing structure that commanded attention both as a symbol of the community's prosperity and its civic pride. It was both stylish and up-to-date when it was completed in 1879. Gardner chose a stick-style architecture for the Brimfield Town Hall. Stick style was a popular design aesthetic in the United States during the mid to late 19th century. And the key characteristics of stick-style architecture are vertical lines and horizontal lines. These would be wooden strips or sticks that are applied in patterns to emphasize vertical, horizontal, or diagonal lines. These patterns often highlight gables, porches, or walls, creating a sense of texture and rhythm. This is the John Griswold House, Bellevue Ave, Newport, Rhode Island, 1864, so around the same time as our town hall, National Register of Historic Places. You have steeply pitched roofs. Gabled or cross-gabled roofs are common. Roofs were often steeply pitched with wide overhanging eaves. This is the Herman Tim House, Main Street, New Holstein, Wisconsin, circa 1872, designed by an architect and on the National Register of Historic Places. Ornamentation and trim is a characteristic of stick style. You have decorative brackets, verge boards, and trusses, and those are used under the eaves and at the ends of gables. This is the Dr. Mary Moody House, or Chetstone as it was known, in New Haven, Connecticut, circa 1875, on the National Register of Historic Places. Porches and balconies are common in stick-style architecture. They're often adorned with stickwork detailing in the railings and in the spindles. As with this home, this is the Deacon Robert Palmer House, Pearl Street, Newent, Connecticut, National Register of Historic Places. Symmetry. Stick-style buildings often feature asymmetrical layouts with varying roof lines, projecting bays, and dormers. The Chappell House, Elm Street, Kalamazoo, Michigan, circa 1880, National Register of Historic Places. Materials. Clapboard or board and batten siding is commonly used with stick-style architecture, emphasizing the wooden nature of the architecture. This is the Emblem Physic Estate, Washington Street, Cape May, New Jersey, circa 1879, designed by an architect, Frank Furness, and on the National Register of Historic Places. Now you have the Brimfield Town Hall, Main Street, Brimfield, Mass., circa 1878. Architect Eugene Gardner, National Register of Historic Places. Our town hall, the emphasis is on wood and structure. The stick style celebrates wood construction, and our town hall is a perfect example. We have decorative elements applied to the exterior, giving the appearance of exposed framing, even though they aren't structural. Eugene Gardner was a very reputable and well-known Springfield architect. By 1887, Gardner had prepared plans for buildings in all but 2 of the United States states and territories. The following are some of his accomplishments. Worthy Hotels, Springfield, Massachusetts, 1895, placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1983. Fitzgerald Stearns Square Block, Springfield, Massachusetts, 1871, placed on the National Register in 1983. The Chinese Educational Mission Building, Hartford, Connecticut, 1877. The Henderson Castle, Washington, D.C., 1888 to 1889. Sadly, all that remains is this wall that you see on the right-hand picture toward the bottom. It's kind of like a wall and gate. The State Armory, Springfield, Massachusetts, 1895, listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1976. The supervising architect of this structure was Gardner and his associates. Mary Lyon Hall, Mount Holyoke College, 1897. Springfield Science Museum, Springfield, Massachusetts, 1898 to 1899. Eugene Gardner, architect. Hinsdale, New Hampshire Town Hall, 1900. Telephone Building, Springfield, Mass, 1909. And here is another list, but not the only list. If you go to Wikipedia, the list goes on and on. Lots of examples of Gardner's design work. And the Brimfield Town Hall is listed as one of them. This is a quote from John Curtis, curator, historian, author, resident, beloved Brimfield Historical Commission member for decades. The Brimfield Town Hall is a building remarkable for its design sophistication, and especially remarkable that it was built in a relatively small, rural, agricultural community. The first town meeting was held in the new building on April 7, 1879. The thanks of the town be and are hereby tendered to the committee for the prudence, jealous care, and faithfulness exercised in producing this house so beautiful and commodious, and so convenient and well adapted for the transaction of public business and the keeping of public property. Hyde's History. In 1879, an expense was recorded in the ledger for the purchase of an E. Howland and Company clock. The purchase price was $50, which is a purchasing power of $1,598.99 today, a somewhat extravagant purchase for the town at the time. A room was set aside in the town hall for a public library in 1881. The library remained in the town hall until 1904, when the current Lincoln Danielson Library was constructed. George Washington painting. In 1881, the provisions of the will of Brimfield native William S. Elwell included the donation of his painting, which is a copy of the Gilbert Stuart original and quite famous picture of Washington. In 1883, $162 was paid to James D. Gill of Springfield for a frame for the George Washington portrait, the equivalent of $5,129 today. The town hall served as both government and community center, and the following slides, newspaper articles. So many non-governmental activities were held in the town hall. In 1887, we have a temperance lecture taking place. In 1890, the town hall held a meeting of the Worcester South Agricultural Society to discuss the present depression in farming, and speakers came from Southbridge all the way to Charlton to come to Brimfield for this event. July 4th, 1899, we have 4th of July celebrations held in the town hall. These were held annually. This is just one newspaper article to highlight that the town hall's use for this activity. And then time marched on. We found ourselves in the turn of the century, where many local organizations held meetings in the town hall, such as the bottom headline, a Boy Scout play. On the right is an article about a meeting of the State Grange where Participants came from Southbridge, Sturbridge, Brimfield, Charlton. We have Dudley in here, Worcester, Auburn, Holden, Gardner, and there were 100 members present at the town hall from afternoon through evening for this event. Here's a clipping about the installation of the World War I memorial monument outside the town hall. The town hall also held numerous Hitchcock Academy reunions over the years, and this is a clipping of one of them. On February 1st, 1932, provisions were made for building an addition at the southeast corner of the building. Now the building is 54 years old. 4 additional rooms and a fire escape were planned to be built using $3,925 that the town received from the sale of the Poor Farm on Haynes Hill Road. This addition, so eagerly sought by one faction and as sturdily opposed by another, was begun in April 1932 and nearly completed by the end of May. 1932 addition, front and back. So on the front side, if you look at the left screen, you can see at the back of the building there are 2 additional windows. That's the addition. And then on the right side, you can see the rear of the building. There's no fire escape yet, but it looks like they're framing out the door. And you see the 2 additional windows off the rear on the first floor. And it goes all the way down into the basement because you see the two different foundations. Brimfield Town Hall had stood unchanged since 1878. There's a quote from May 26, 1932 in the Morning Union. Except for necessary repairs, an occasional coat of paint, and such needed changes and improvements as were required from time to time, the old town hall has remained the same as it was on the day that it was turned over to the town for official use, and the addition recently erected is the first major change of any kind. In the 1950s, the town hall hosted suppers and luncheons as well as meetings of the Grange and Scouts. An annual Halloween party for children and teens also occurred, as well as many evenings of square dancing. An annual minstrel show, sponsored by the Brimfield Grange, took place at the hall, as well as meetings of the volunteer fire department. And here you see 300 at a community Halloween party held at the town hall. The town hall functioned as a civil defense headquarters in times of disasters. When the 1955 floods occurred, 700 persons who were stranded by the floods were fed and sheltered in the Brimfield Town Hall and other available spaces. Polio clinics were held at the Brimfield Town Hall in the late 1950s and early 1960s. And here you see this article where the school nurse is announcing the clinic will be held at the Brimfield Town Hall. The shot was first given to infants and pregnant women, and then children and adolescents under 20 and pregnant women who have received 1 polio shot. And the article goes on. So here is an event on October 7th, 1963. Reverend John Lucy was welcomed into town with a reception at the Brimfield Town Hall. In 1975, the nation's bicentennial, it was decided that the town hall should be returned from white, as you see pictured here, to its original earthen colors. Here's a quote from, again, our own John Curtis, Historical Commission member, curator, and historian, who clearly did not approve of the color white, as it wasn't historically accurate. The town hall was repainted after decades of hiding behind cautious, bland, ignominious white. Undoubtedly, the building was painted white either as an economy measure or as an expression of prevailing taste earlier this century. In 1992, you see repairs are being done to the roof Here's a picture of that. That was in the paper. Advances in computer technology led to the need for electrical upgrades of the now 116-year-old building. Tantascwa electrical students provided the labor for this project with a tight budget of $10,000. New lighting, rewiring, and adding new circuits in 12 basement offices was needed at the time. Union News, September 22, 1994. Voters agreed to spending $117,600 on repairs to the town hall in the spring of 1999. It was reported that the town hall had cramped office space, inadequate electrical, poor heating, and needs improvement in accessibility. In a 1996 article, a town employee and resident, Sue Hilker, noted that there were many present and future needs of the town hall that needed to be addressed, including an inadequate alarm system, no fireproof storage for records. She noted that town records are stored all over, boxes and boxes of records in the attic. The town had no sprinkler system, and the threat of fire was a big concern. The town's response was to replace 2 furnaces and adopt a no smoking policy around 1996. In the fall of 2008, town officials wanted to close the town hall for the winter to save on heat. Pam Bell, town clerk at the time, advocated for keeping it open, even though only a few offices and departments remained. With her advocacy, it remained open. It was built to be exactly what it is today, said Pam Bell, the seat of government, community meeting place, and the pride of the village. In 2009, it was noticed that the ceiling in the Great Hall was sagging. Upon inspection, the building inspector noted that structural beams had become unattached to supporting sidewalls. On March 6, 2009, the town hall was ordered to be closed due to the potential collapse of the roof. The offices of the police, the town clerk, cable access, and the Conservation Commission were impacted. The Republican noted this in March 2009. Scaffolding was placed from the basement to the roof. The George Washington painting was crated and stored on the stage. By April, the building was shored up and discussions were held about moving the police to the fire station with some renovations to that building. That spring, the town meeting was held in the elementary school, at which time $20,000 was designated for structural engineering diagnostics. The June 1st election was held in St. Christopher's Church that year. And so 2009 marked the first time in the history of the town hall, that town business needed to be conducted elsewhere. Memo to the Board of Selectmen, September 2nd, 2010, from the Brimfield Historical Commission. The BHC expressed their wishes for the town to appoint a town hall restoration committee. The memo urged preservation of the town's historic building by saying, preservation is not about creating pristine museum pieces for the sake of nostalgia. Preservation is about using our architectural heritage, keeping it functional and useful, while being good stewards of its integrity, character, and value to the community. Those important members who signed this memo were Pam Bell, John Curtis, Suzanne Collins, Mark Connors, Phil Carpenter, Carolyn Haley. After being closed for 3 years, the town hall reopened in time for the state primary. The clerk moved back to the town hall. The police were now to remain in the fire station. This is March 2012. The town hall saw hundreds of town meetings, board meetings, assemblies, public hearings, concerts, lectures, teen dances, movies, Hitchcock reunions, auctions, private functions, votes, and ceremonies. The Town Hall fulfilled its duty to support the operational needs of the town until it couldn't. For decades, various committees have attempted to address the aging building's needs. No major steps toward renovation or rehabilitation have been taken by the town vote. Limited steps have been taken by necessity. On June 22, 2006, Brimfield's Town Hall was recognized by the United States Department of the Interior and was enrolled in the National Register of Historic Places due to its contribution to the Brimfield Center Historic District. The National Register of Historic Places is the United States federal government's official list of sites, buildings, structures, districts, and objects deemed worthy of preservation for their historical significance or great artistic value. The Brimfield Historic District met the criteria for the National Register by the following: being significant for its collection of architecturally distinctive and well-preserved buildings that ranged from Georgian style of 1760 through the Tudor Revival of 1903. It includes federal homes, a Greek Revival meeting house of 1848, an Italianate high school of 1855 with our Hitchcock Academy, and a stick-style town hall of 1878. This is a list of municipally owned monuments and properties that are specifically named on the National Register of Historic Places in the town of Brimfield: the Town Hall, the Civil War Soldiers Monument, the Brimfield Cemetery, the Benjamin Salisbury House, also known to us as the Annex, the Brimfield Common, the Marquis Converse Memorial Fountain, the Danielson Lincoln Memorial Library, and a new town property that was just acquired at the town meeting, with the windmill, which is on the National Register, and now it's a municipally owned property. The Town Hall has faithfully served Brimfield for 147 years. It was designed by prominent Springfield architect Eugene Gardner in the late 19th century, and the significance of its stick-style architecture contributed to the historic district's placement on the National Register of Historic Places. As a recognized historic place, the Town Hall serves as a tangible connection to our roots, anchoring us to the values and traditions that have shaped our community. This building is more than a structure. It is a living narrative of the generations that came before us. It tells stories of the lives lived within and around its walls, of the challenges faced and the triumphs celebrated. Most importantly, this building is ours. It belongs to the community. By choosing to invest in it, we are making a profound statement about what we value as a community. Saving it is stating that we value heritage, that we value beauty, and that we value a sense of place that makes our town unique. The Brimfield Historical Commission's position is the necessary preservation of this valuable town asset. Preservation is not just a responsibility, it is a privilege. It allows us to participate in the ongoing story of this building, to be its caretakers during our time, and to pass it on enriched to the next generation. Let's come together to preserve this historic building as a symbol of our past and a promise of our future. By investing in it today, we ensure that it continues to inspire, to serve, and to unite us as a community. In 1878, it rose with stick-style grace and proud repose. Eugene Gardner shaped its frame, a civic hall of earnest gain. Its timbers strong, its purpose clear, a place where townsfolk gathered near. For votes, for plays, for plans once laid, a beacon that the past had made. But time has slipped and silence fell. Dust now cloaks where voices dwelled. Yet still it stands, not lost, not gone, a sleeping soul that waits the dawn. The walls remember what was done, the events, the meetings, elections won. Let's lift it up, not let it fade. Revive the dreams our forebearers made. So raise your voices loud and clear. Ring the bell for all to hear. Brimfield's heart still beats inside. Let's restore the hall with community pride. Thank you.